Hi guys, back again with me on Latest Movie Stories. By the way, how are you loyal viewers of Latest Movie Stories? I hope you are all well. Because on this occasion, Latest Movie Stories will discuss and review the latest film entitled In the Lost Lands in 2025. Okay, without further ado, let's get straight to the discussion. And if you like this channel, as usual, please subscribe so you don't miss other interesting videos from Latest Movie Stories. The story begins in the future, when the world has been devastated by a great war. Earth is now a post-apocalyptic wasteland known as the Forgotten Lands. The remnants of humanity survive in the only remaining city, ruled by an authoritarian ruler. A religious group maintains order and enforces obedience. One day, a woman named Gray Alys was sentenced to hang because she was accused of using witchcraft. Law enforcement is using this incident as a warning to anyone who intends to oppose religious authority.
And still sure you're going to tell me that you are off the...
But after they leave, Gray uses his magic to manipulate a soldier's mind, making him believe he is the one hanging. In the chaos, the magic-influenced soldier shoots the noose, accidentally saving Gray. The soldier was shocked to see Gray near him, reflexively shooting him, again and again influenced by Gray's magic. The bullet hit another soldier instead. As soon as the leader learned of the incident, he immediately killed the soldiers who were affected by magic and ordered his troops to hunt down Gray.
To me.
As the chase progresses, Gray hides in the dark and kills the soldiers one by one, until only the leader remains. Gray managed to trap him with a knife, and despite being challenged to kill him, he refused to give him a quick death. He chose to hang him. As Gray leaves, the townspeople give way to him and call him the unhangable witch. Elsewhere, a wanderer named Boyce is traversing a tunnel alone. He realizes he's being watched. Suddenly, the ambushers appeared. One of them tried to grab his weapon, but was instantly killed by the two-headed snake on his weapon. And quickly finished off the entire gang before they could move. Once the situation was safe, he retrieved his snake and continued on his way. Meanwhile, Gray finds refuge in a tower. Gray leaves some money for a blind woman who recognizes him as a savior in the past.
Only to you.
Shortly afterward, a queen arrived with her guard captain, Gis. The queen wanted to buy the power to transform into a wolf, and paid Gray with luxurious jewelry.
Sell me the secret of shape-shifting.
Gray accepts the deal and explains the plan. He will hire a hunter to kill the shape-shifting creature and seize its powers. The deadline is the next full moon, 6 days from now. As Gray prepares his equipment and weapons, Joreus, or Gis, approaches and offers Gray another job. He wants Gray to thwart the Queen's plans. Gis claims loyalty, but believes such power will only bring destruction. Gray suspects Gis's intentions may be driven by jealousy. But, since he never turns down a job, Gray accepts Gis's watch as payment. Afterwards, Gray used his vision magic to scout the Forgotten Lands. He saw a group of men trying to fight a giant wolf. But they all died in seconds. Elsewhere, the ruler, king, lies weak and asks for help from his wife, or what is called the queen, who looks annoyed, sharply mocking him while calling the servants. But it is revealed that she is secretly in a relationship with Boyce, and the two engage in a passionate kiss. When Boyce tried to leave the palace secretly, he was intercepted by the guards. In a seedy bar, Gray meets a man named Boyce, who wants to hire him as a hunter, as he is known to rule the Forgotten Lands. However, Boyce is more interested in gambling. Gray also joined in the game and immediately won in the first round.
You ready to talk now?
Initially reluctant, Boyce begins to consider Gray's offer. Boyce then tells him about a giant wolf that lives in a place called Skull River, a name reminiscent of Gray's previous ritual vision. He agrees to pay Boyce with Jiss's watch if he takes him there.
This can be yours.
Suddenly, a group of soldiers stormed the bar. One of them fired from upstairs, but Boyce threw his snake at him, killing him instantly. Then, the enforcer killed the snake with one swift slash. However, when he turned around, Gray and the boys had disappeared. At the church, the religious leader warns the congregation that all witches and heretics must be brought to justice. While the congregation pretends to pray, they secretly distribute leaflets containing messages of resistance. After the service, it is revealed that the leader knows about the underground movement and realizes that Gray has now become a symbol of rebellion.
Gray Alys has become a symbol of...
The law enforcer then brought Gray's blind female friend in for questioning, even stepping on her hand until she confessed that Gray had been visited by Jiss and the Queen. The Patriarch then ordered the enforcer to arrest Gray, force him to confess to deceiving the city ruler, and then hang him. Meanwhile, Gray and Boyce are camped in the Forgotten Lands. Boyce are searching for a new snake, but haven't found a suitable one yet. As night falls, he approaches Gray with his sword in hand. Gray immediately retaliated with his knife, but it turned out that the boys only wanted to save him from the poisonous scorpion. The next day, they arrive at a trading post owned by two sisters, Mara and Ross, old friends of the Boyce. Boyce explained that they have a week to find the shapeshifter, but Gray wants everything done faster. Therefore, the boys decide to take a shortcut that's high risk. As morning approaches and they are about to leave, Boyce reminds them that only Mara and Roz can be trusted in the Forgotten Lands. Elsewhere, Enforcer and his squad begin a manhunt into restricted territory in an armored train. The Queen approached the Patriarch, furious that her armored train had been used without permission. The Patriarch insisted that the Queen had betrayed the city, as it was now unguarded. The Queen vehemently denied this.
Eyes have power.
Shortly afterward, the Patriarch contacted Enforcer and declared that his suspicions were confirmed. The Queen had lied. Gray must be arrested immediately. If the Queen could be accused of treason and the ruler died soon, the Patriarch could then take full control.
I will do the rest.
Sometime later, a group of soldiers found Mara and Ross. They were brutally tortured, until Ross, unable to bear it any longer, revealed that Gray and Boyce were heading to the Skull River. Upon receiving this information, the soldiers killed the two siblings and burned their home to the ground. The next day, Gray and Boyce arrived at the Rift, a ruined area of an ancient city filled with ravines and collapsed buildings. They entered one of the old buildings to find the operator of the cable car, the only way to cross the grate. The boys called out the name of the operator who usually operated the train, but there was no answer.
Sorceress will take us over for a silver coin. Keeps fresh.
As they explored deeper, they found the man hanging dead, a sign that enemy troops had arrived first.
Cyrus had visitors.
As they were about to leave, they were ambushed by Enforcer and his troops. Enforcer offered Boyce safety if they would hand over Gray. As proof of their commitment, the soldiers showed Mara's body. However, Mara was still alive and weakly calling out the boy's name. Without hesitation, Enforcer shot her to prevent her from being saved. Seeing Mara shot, Boyce immediately opened fire. Gray charged toward a soldier and seized his weapon. Working together solidly, they managed to take down many of the enemies. However, a second wave of soldiers emerged from the train and charged. Fighting broke out again. Despite their best efforts, the enemy numbers continued to grow, and Gray were running out of ammunition. They tried to flee, but the enemy train began firing cannons. Luckily, they were fast enough to dodge. falling, rolling, and then running toward the cable car. Boyce immediately let go of the train, causing it to slide forward over the cliff, while the soldiers continued to give chase. Gray climbed up and faced them one by one. With quick and agile movements, he defeated almost all the enemies, until only one remained, who was forced to chase him into the narrow side of the carriage. Gray then injured the enemy's hand, so that the enemy fell into a ravine. Realizing his troops were beginning to lose, Enforcer ordered his men to cut the train cables. Gray and Boyce quickly climbed the rock wall to get out before the train plummeted into the abyss. As they neared the top, the Enforcer fired, hitting Boyce in the shoulder. Gray, who reached the top first, used his powers to distract the Enforcer, giving them time to escape. And night fell at the hideout. Boyce pulled the bullet out of his shoulder, and Gray stitched up the wound with great care. The next morning, the Queen discovered she was pregnant. Despite knowing the baby was the product of her relationship with Boyce, she pretended that the ruler was the father. To secure the throne, she approached her ailing husband and murdered him by pressing a pillow over his face. Meanwhile, Gray and Boyce arrive in a dangerous area called Shadow's Bane, a place known for the appearance of terrifying creatures at night. Suddenly, they heard the sound of the engine of the train carrying the Enforcer approaching. Because they had no time to escape, they decided to hide inside an old tower. There, they deliberately dropped several gas cylinders onto the floor.
Flame is the only thing they fear.
As night fell and the lights were turned on, demons began to appear and surround them. Boyce immediately lit matches and threw them at the gas, creating a protective ring of fire around them. However, the creatures didn't stop. They used metal plates as bridges to cross the flames. One of the demons managed to leap toward Boyce, but Gray stabbed it with his sword and pulled it back. A fierce battle ensued. When the demon tried to counterattack, Gray had to leap and face the creature head-on. Their leader descended onto the battlefield with his followers. He called out Gray's name and warned that this was not his place. Gray then used his magic to create a firestorm, transforming the circle of flames into a giant vortex that incinerated all creatures, including his leader. After the battle, Boyce realized he couldn't feel any heat from the fire. Gray then explained that the fire was an illusion, a mind trick that made the demons believe they were burning until they actually died from the suggestion. He also revealed that this place once held great power, and that someone had hired him to steal treasure. However, the expedition ended tragically. Those people turned into the creatures they were fighting today. Elsewhere, the Patriarch announced the death of the ruler and announced that the Queen was pregnant. Thus, the child would be the heir to the throne. The people seemed unenthusiastic until Gis fired a shot into the air to encourage them. Afterward, the Patriarch symbolically showed his support for the Queen. However, he internally despised her and secretly called upon Enforcer to act immediately. Meanwhile, the Queen devised her own strategy. She seduced Gis and used him to gain military power for her own personal gain. Boyce and Gray continue their journey to the fire fields, and Boyce say they will arrive at their destination the next day. Gray warns that shapeshifting is very dangerous and suggests that the boys simply take payment and leave. But the boys refuse, wanting to stay with Gray. The next day, the two were crossing a tunnel when they heard the sound of a train approaching in the distance. Unable to avoid it, they devised a strategy. Gray stood on the tracks, waited for the train to approach, then began running. Enforcer then races his train after Gray, unaware that he's being trapped. Gray heads for a damaged section of track and at the last second jumps and is caught by Boyce. The train failed to stop, plunged into a ravine, and exploded, killing Enforcer and his entire army. Once the Patriarch learned of the situation, he immediately attempted to mobilize his own forces to seize power by force. But before her plan could be carried out, Gis and his army appeared and immediately surrounded and killed the Patriarch and his remaining soldiers. With that, the Queen became the sole remaining ruler of the city. The next day, Gray and Boyce finally arrive at a grim area called Skull River, a place littered with the remains of victims of a beast attack. They explore an old, seemingly abandoned building, and while there are signs that someone once lived there, no one appears. Boyce suggests they leave immediately, but Gray is adamant about continuing his mission. As night falls, Gray prepares, putting on silver claw gloves on his fingers. He's ready to face danger. Boyce tries to stop him once more, but it's too late. The full moon emerges from behind the clouds, and something terrible happens. Boyce begins to change. His body rapidly enlarged, his clothes tore, and he transformed into a giant wolf-like creature. It turned out that Boyce had been a shapeshifter all along, and Gray began to suspect that Boyce had been accompanying him solely to lure him to this place and kill him. Gray threw Boyce's watch at him and then fought back with his silver weapon, but Boyce in his new form was much stronger and easily knocked Gray away. To survive, Gray creates an illusion. A large flock of birds attacks Boyce, giving Gray a chance to hide. As Boyce leaped toward the flock of birds and were about to attack, the illusion vanished, and Gray seized the moment to stab Boyce with his silver claws. Boyce tried to get up and defend themselves. His power has weakened. Gray managed to knock him out. Boyce briefly raised his hands in surrender as Gray prepared to deliver the decisive blow. Moments later, Boyce woke up, his body covered in wounds and battle scars. Gray gave him water and told him to rest. Boyce eventually fell asleep, but when he awoke again, he realized he had been chained. It was revealed that when Gray had stitched up his wounds earlier, he had inserted a small piece of silver under Boyce's skin. The object had been slowly poisoning his body. Gray prepares to finish him off, but Boyce makes one final request. He reminds Gray that he is bound by a rule not to refuse anyone's request. Boyce reveals that all he wants is for them to stay together and hunt as a pair to end their long-standing loneliness. Gray accepts the request, though he hints that it will come at a high price. At that moment, the clouds shift and moonlight returns, triggering Boyce to transform again. Knowing this, Gray prepares and begins to rip open his chest to end his suffering. The next morning, Gray placed Boyce's watch on his grave as a final sign of respect, then walked away carrying the skin from Boyce's body. Upon arriving in the city, the people began shouting his name enthusiastically. The guards tried to calm the commotion. However, the situation spiraled out of control. Shortly afterward, the large cross symbol adorning the city's church was torn down by angry rebels. Gray then handed Boyce's feather to Gis with a message that the Queen would gain the power it held. When Gis pointed out that Gray had failed to complete the mission, Gray calmly replied that he had killed the Queen's lover, Boyce, which indirectly paved the way for Gis to possess him in accordance with his hidden desires.
I have changed that.
But when the Queen learned that the skin Gray brought came from Boyce, she was in for a shock. From the beginning, her dream had been to transform into a creature like the boys so they could live together forever. But Gis instead accused the boys of ruining the Queen's life. Feeling betrayed by everyone, the Queen took her hairpin and stabbed Gis in the neck, killing him on the spot. Meanwhile, the rebels took advantage of the chaos to storm the palace. Their sheer numbers prevented the guards from stopping the attack, even after opening fire. On the other side, Boyce's tomb began to vibrate, a sign that something extraordinary was happening. Shortly after, the boys came back to life and began searching for Gray, driven by a desire for revenge. However, when they finally met, Gray revealed that she had long known about the relationship between the boys and the Queen. All her plans, including the chaos in the city and the rise of rebellion, were aimed at freeing the people from tyranny's rule and ensuring the boys' survival. Despite hearing this explanation, the boys still tried to shoot her. However, his gun was damaged. He then switched to using a knife and attacked Gray. They fought fiercely until each of them held the knife to the other's throat, each in a threatening position. At that moment, Gray reminded him that this was the fate boys themselves had desired. Boyce fell silent and finally agreed. They lowered their weapons, chose to leave together, and began a new journey across the mysterious region known as the Lost Land. And that's the end of this story. That concludes our review and discussion of the film In the Lost Lands. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to stay tuned for more exciting videos from latest movie stories. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video. See you later.